Welcome to the No Camps Podcast. I'm Sunny G.
I'm Akash.
I'm Jason.
And here on the No Camps Podcast, we discuss a variety of film and television. And on today's episode, we'll be talking about what we've been watching. So, Jason, what you been watching, bro?
What have I been watching? I'm going first? Okay. Well, have you guys ever seen that show on Comedy Central called Nathan For You?
Yeah, I have. I binged season 1 and 2 a while back. It's probably one of the funniest shows on Comedy Central, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's been around for a while too. I didn't really know about it until just this last week. And I saw him because he was like on Conan O'Brien, and he's just hilarious. So I started watching his show, and his show is just outrageous. And Sunny, if you've never seen it, what he basically does is he gives marketing advice to small businesses, but he gives like very unique, just very strange marketing advice to like real businesses and real people. And it's kind of like the business version of Borat, where it's just he's so outrageous and so like stone cold, and his delivery into the way he just says things and presents things, it's hilarious. So like I've just been watching like different clips and stuff on their website. But I'm trying to think, like the one that I laughed so hard at was there was like this he basically wanted to start this workout routine. So he hired this guy that was gonna do this workout video where you basically just work out with the furniture. So he's just moving furniture around his house, picking up ottomans, moving lamps around, and you get really ripped. And it's this new like workout routine. And it's like this kind of old weird guy who's like a bodybuilder type dude. He's huge. He's like jacked, and he's just like moving end tables. And like he had a ghostwriter write a book about his path to getting strong, like with lifting weights, just in the house. He got picked up on local news, and he was doing stuff on the local news. In his autobiography that he had written for him, he had ghostwritten for him. It said that he was like childhood friends with Steve Jobs. And the whole time he's like hiring this guy and like telling this like bodybuilder guy what he's going to do to promote the show. And he's like, by the way, we wrote a backstory for you, so read up on your life so that you can talk about it. So he's lying about the whole thing. And it goes so far. It goes too far. It becomes like cringeworthy at the end of each little bit. But it's hysterical. You got to watch it.
Yeah, his humor is very dry, and it's really, really funny. It's probably one of the only shows I've had to like pause so I can stop laughing, just so I can continue watching. You might have heard of this, Sunny. His most popular episode is called Dumb Starbucks, where he goes to the struggling coffee shop and he renames it Dumb Starbucks. And it like revitalizes the whole coffee business for that particular store. And it brings in a bunch of consumers to come in and whatever. And eventually it has to get shut down. And Starbucks almost even like threatened legal action and stuff like that. So.
But everything he does is legal, though. Everything he does is legal. He finds little loopholes within like the legal system to get whatever he does done, and so he used like parody law for Dumb Starbucks. So exactly. Yeah, it was totally legal.
Yeah.
So he's serious in the sense that he's giving advice that's not going to get them in trouble, but he's trolling because it's just like really shitty or weird esoteric advice.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, he goes to a frozen yogurt place that's like struggling for business, and he offers the advice to create a poo flavored yogurt because that's going to bring. So they do it. They make a poop flavored yogurt, and he does like taste tests, and he has like it's crazy. And the guy just goes along with it. You can see like the owner of the store is just like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. He thinks he's on. He thinks it's like Gordon Ramsay, and he's going to get his kitchen knife. He's going to get his store rebuilt, but no, it's just some shitty advice by some random guy.
So does he pretend to be like an actual consultant, and these people reach out to him looking for a real consultant?
He doesn't break character once at all. He's completely serious the whole time. It's brilliant, dude. It's amazing.
All right, Nathan For You. I'll have to check it out.
Nathan For You on Comedy Central. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So Sunny, what have you been watching?
Let's see. Watched War for the Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
Yeah, you saw it as well, right?
I did.
What'd you think?
It was not what I expected. The title threw me off completely, but I wasn't surprised. I was very pleasantly, like, I was happy that I watched it. It was a very good film. Uh, Again, like I mentioned, is nothing what I expected. I was expecting more set pieces, more action, but it's
Mhm.
very much a well told, like, dramatic story, which I really enjoyed. What about you?
I agree that it was definitely wasn't what I was expecting. Like you
Mhm.
would think with the title War of the Planet of the Apes. Spoiler alert, there's not so much of a war going on,
Right.
so much it is as it is like an entire story of enslaving an entire other species.
Right.
Um, uh, but
How much
it
time has
definitely was.
passed?
Oh, I think it actually picks up pretty quickly after the end of the second one.
Very.
So the first
Yeah.
opening scene, um, you learn that there's a special military unit that whose sole purpose is to hunt down the remaining apes in the forest. And then there's a scuffle between the two, and yeah, you just learn that there's like a military base close to the town, or like further north in California, north of the town that was overrun. And before that town pretty much collapsed on itself, they phoned in for military help, and so those people came. But you learn that there's an evolution of the simian flu. I won't spoil like what happens,
Mhm.
but not everything. So you think that at the end of Dawn, like Koba is just too much of an asshole, holding like too much of a grudge, and is sorry, is pretty much starting a war between humans and apes, right? And then you would think and or want to hope that the humans would understand that, you know, if they just make peace, or they just understand that the apes just want a home, then, you know, everybody can live hunky dory. But there's a side element to War of the Planet of the Apes. With regards to the evolution of the flu, that suggests that it's not even possible for it to be that simple,
Mhm.
which I thought was interesting because well, I thought it was interesting from a plot perspective, because if it was just a matter of like, hey, can we
Right.
try to be Gandhi and try to, you know, show the humans how bad they're being, like it just wasn't going to happen, and it would have been really boring. So thankfully it wasn't like that.
Yeah, it adds a nice little wrinkle to the plot because there's literally only one outcome, I think,
Hmm.
that the movie proposes for the humans and the apes.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the classes of apes that they had here. You know, they had a couple of defector apes who were siding with the humans, and the way they like portrayed those apes was very interesting, and it kind of used a lot of like slavery imagery, like you mentioned,
Hmm.
calling them donkeys and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
What? Go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. I was just gonna say the location shots in
Hmm.
this franchise are all beautiful. Like it's in the Northwest, like NorCal, and probably all the way up to Seattle. But like that's where I imagine they shot it. But it's absolutely visually stunning. I really enjoyed the location shots in this film.
Um, what I was gonna say was the you know, when you watch the original Planet of the Apes movies, both from the perspective of like what they had available as practical effects, but also I think just because movies back then didn't take the environment that they were building so seriously, you end up getting apes that are very, very human like,
Right.
pretty much humans in ape costumes, right?
Mhm.
Like, so what is interesting is that as the series progressed, you saw Caesar in particular, but and to a lesser degree, a lot of the other apes become more human-like and adopt more human um, characteristics and like personality
Mhm.
qualities.
Yep.
And this movie definitely takes it to the utmost degree. You almost kind of forgetting that you're watching monkeys, because
Mhm.
like they are acting so human like, and especially the CGI is just so good. Like they both seem like very real apes, but at the same time very relatable, like almost human like characters.
Yeah.
Which I and the movie ends in a note where it almost directly segues into the kind of environments that we are more accustomed to with the original Planet of the Apes movies.
Right.
So without giving anything away, like they're pretty much butting up in terms of ape evolution to the kind of apes that we were first introduced to in the 60s, which I thought was really interesting too.
Yeah, I can't agree more with you on the CG. There was not a moment in the film where I didn't question it.
Mm-hmm.
It almost felt like those apes were all real.
Yep.
I don't know. Technology's come a long way, man. It's freaking beautiful. Because, I don't know. There's some movies where you can clearly tell that doesn't look real. But, like, I would really like to know the behind the scenes on how they were to capture that and to show that on the big screen. It's very well done. So props to that whole digital team that accomplished that.
Well, it's also props to the actors too. They gotta. I mean, if it's all motion capture, they gotta actually move. You know, a big part of that is like the movement of them. I haven't seen this movie, but on the first two, yeah, it was. I thought the way that he moved, you know, was really real.
Yeah, the guy who plays Caesar should be up for some sort of award for his acting, because I think you have to emote more than a normal actor would to capture some of those on the digital camera. Or
it's Andy Serkis, right?
Yeah, Andy Serkis. Yep.
Yeah.
Same guy who played Gollum.
It's these three movies have occupied such a weird space in Hollywood, from what we like conventionally expect from Hollywood. It's not, despite being as CGI heavy as it is, it's not a movie like that self-flagellates over its use of CG, right? It's not your kind of Transformers movie. It's not even Pacific Rim to a certain degree, which not only depends on it, but like overuses it. At the same time, the first one was a drama and the second two were action movies. But again, they're not action movies so hell-bent on blowing shit up just to keep your eyes occupied. And story-wise, they're not like 2001, that kind of heady, but at the same time, they're not drivel. They're not like simpleton plot beats that we are so familiar with. So all of those features combined make this weird trilogy that is like surprisingly high quality,
very high quality,
given how much it relies on just traditional Hollywood things, I guess, components.
Yeah. Like you said, it's not, these action movies are typically driven by set pieces, and it moves from set piece to set piece, and they're just trying to show you how pretty the screen can look. But like you said, this entire trilogy has been based on character development, growth, and the interactions between the characters, which really drives the story and makes it more meaningful and impactful, in my opinion. But yeah, you nailed it with that. I think it's a really unique movie in that sense, and it doesn't need to fill a certain quota to be successful. I think it's a very good film in its own right in that sense.
So I have a question for you too then. Where do you rank this in the new trilogy?
I think I maybe even like it a little bit more than the second one. But not as much as the first one. I thought the first one was just great.
Yeah. I think I do like it more than the second one. And I don't remember the first one enough. Well, I remember the plot points and everything from the first one, but I'm not sure where I'd put the first one. I think it still might be the best. I mean, origin stories are always very fun, but I don't know, man. I don't know if I can rank it because they all work really well as a cohesive story. So I don't think like I can rank one is better than the other. I think they all work well together as a trilogy.
You know, actually, to further expound on the point I just made, you know, in Stranger Things is a good example of a show that didn't. It did rely on its the story elements from its first season, but kind of took them into a new direction. But what's also weird about this trilogy is that it has a very like TV show like progression and variety in its story elements. You know, the first movie was like an origin story drama about his relationship with humans and how like this whole thing got kickstarted. The second is about survival and their relationship with humans, and then the third one is about conflict with humans. Right. It's almost like these all could have been one long movie, because each single part had its own different emotional beats and narratives to fit within a much larger narrative. So yeah, it's nice to see a movie that is not afraid to almost plot wise go in a completely different direction while still somehow remaining true to the original spirit of what they were creating in the first place.
Could you compare it to like Lord of the Rings in those terms of a trilogy?
Kind of, but even then, Lord of the Rings is like you're going to new places, but you're not really escaping from the underlying narrative structure.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Whereas these movies, like, you could almost replace the characters of these movies and take their plots and make completely different movies out of them. Just remove the context of it being apes, and you would not see any relationship between the three.
Right.
That's how varied it seems these are, which is so surprising.
Totally. Yeah.
You guys know that was the 9th Planet of the Apes film.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
9.
Including I'm also including Marky Mark one?
Yeah, including the Marky Mark. Yeah, that one in 2001. Yeah, so there's been 9 Planet of the Apes movies and a TV series too.
Oh,
holy crap! I had no idea. Well, eventually we should watch the originals and compare them to this trilogy. I think it'd be
I'm actually dreading that.
Yeah,
they're not very tall task. They don't age very well. Yeah,
I doubt they do. All right.
Yeah, maybe we can do a reboots and remakes of the original one, the Marky Mark one, and on.
That'll be.
I don't know. It'd be worse the Marky Mark one or the original. Yeah.
Original will be better. I think the Marky Mark one was just. It was at a time where they didn't know what they were doing in Hollywood, man. They just threw money at something and they're like,
it was a transition phase for sure.
Yeah.
There was like borderline bestiality in there. You know, it got weird. It got real weird.
All right, moving on that note.
As much as I'd love to sit here and talk about bestiality, let's move on to another.
Yeah, what have you been watching, Akash? Yeah.
Hashtag bestiality, no camps podcast, guys. Come on. Yeah, let's move on to a movie that I saw Thursday night, Thor Ragnarok, which is the 3rd installment in the Thor franchise. Let me give you some quick thoughts. Probably the funniest Thor movie that's been released, which is not saying much. Probably one of the funniest Marvel movies, which is saying quite a bit. I think they really nailed the humor in this movie. Obviously not a perfect movie, but Marvel has this formula that they've figured out where they know the exact amount of comedy, exact amount of action and character development to make everyone in the crowd happy. I really enjoyed this movie in the moment. Obviously there's a bunch of nitpicks here and there, but as a movie as a whole, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I recommend anyone who's a Marvel fan to definitely go check this out. Sunny, you saw this movie too, right?
Yeah, I saw this last night at like 11:30.
Yeah.
I liked it, but I did not appreciate the humor. I mean, it was funny, objectively funny, like funny jokes, but I thought Thor was supposed to be one of the core 3 universe building and universe narrative driving movies, right? The other 2 being Iron Man and Captain America.
Right.
I was really surprised to see this movie intentionally cast itself out to the like second tier Marvel movies, not necessarily in terms of quality, but in terms of like their importance to the narrative, like Guardians and Spider-Man. I was disappointed in the fact that this movie didn't have more to do with the rest of the universe, and it didn't try to involve itself with the rest of the underlying narrative. But that could also be because I'm really wishing to get to know more about Thanos before Avengers. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like we're going to get anything else about him before the movie.
And
I
no
kind
other
of was.
movie
Yeah.
has really teased anything about Thanos more than, I mean, Thor, right? I mean, we've only seen bits and pieces of Thanos. Nothing, no other Marvel movie is focused more than maybe 35-second like throwaway scene or an after credit spoiler to really
Mhm.
address Thanos. So I don't know if that's something you want to hold against this movie in that sense.
Well, I mean, they bring it up in Guardians. Like a lot of in the first one at least, a lot of Gamora's dad is Thanos, right?
Right.
Nebula's dad is Thanos. Drax wants to kill Thanos. Um, whatever is it? Ronan's works for Thanos, right?
Right.
So in Guardians, we get a lot of that. But given that Thor at the end of Avengers 2 was like hell bent on finding more about the Infinity Stones, you would have assumed that at the very least he would have crossed paths with somebody
Right.
mentioning Thanos or somebody slowly uncovering and unfurling this master plot that's developing, right? What and that could be intentional, right? We could come into Avengers next summer
Right.
and have everyone be completely blindsided by the existence of this new being, the existence of legitimate like Infinity Stones, which nobody seems to know about except for the Guardians and except for Thor,
And Loki.
um, and Loki, right? And just
And Doctor
completely
Strange.
be. And go ahead. What was it?
And Doctor Strange. Doesn't he
Oh,
know
and
about him too?
yeah, exactly. I mean, he
Yeah.
only knows it by name, right? But I don't think any of these other characters know the grander significance of it. And you would think that if they were building this MCU, that all of the movies would tease out tiny little pieces,
Correct.
so that by the time we got to Avengers the 3,
Mm-hmm.
like we would know more than the rest of the characters and the gap between what we know and what the characters are going to have to learn for themselves would be a lot greater than what it is.
Yeah, you're saying they almost like piecemealed information to us movie by movie rather than giving us a huge pill to swallow during
Yeah,
Infinity War.
because I don't think they're going to fuck it up, but I do think they run the risk. So I may not like it as much as everybody else does,
Right.
but I think they do run the risk of turning Thanos into one of these other run-of-the-mill enemies who just wants power.
Mhm.
Nobody fucking knows why or why he cares so much.
Right.
And everybody has to save the world, And I'm kind of hoping that Thanos can be the exception to that rule, because if they're just going to build out all of these different enemies, like the one from Doctor Strange, like Ronan from Guardians, all of these enemies that we don't give two shits about, and they end up dying at the end. Like I would hope that they almost overload us with that, so that when they give us Thanos, he is the exception to the rule and like an exception by a large margin.
Right.
Actually,
yeah.
You saying that it doesn't have a lot to do with Thanos is actually a big draw for me in this movie, because that's also, I kind of like that it's a separate piece, because they are piecemealing all these little breadcrumbs about Thanos throughout the different Marvel movies. And my big concern is whenever they finally do reveal Thanos, or they confront Thanos, or however the storyline plays out, that it's going to be so underwhelming that 15 movies have gone by and they're just like, oh, remember Thanos? Thanos is here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanos is always that evil lurking, and I mean, he better be worth it. And like, my fear is that it's like they're going to drag us through all these movies, and it's just like that ending, the final bad guy. I mean, kind of like what we were saying with Stranger Things, right? It was like that final ending wasn't worth the buildup, and my fear with Thanos is that it's not going to be worth the buildup. So I don't really care that they have a movie that doesn't involve Thanos. This movie, to me, and tell me if it's wrong because you guys saw it, it just came across as like, this is just kind of a fun filler movie, and not filler in a bad way, but just kind of, we like these characters. This is like a fun idea. This is kind of an homage to more of the real comic book style of just kind of out there parallel universe type of plot lines. And it's just kind of a fun romp just to remind you that, hey, Avengers is still around, Marvel's is still around, your favorite characters are still around. And yeah, it's just kind of to help build on the universe.
I mean, it's definitely all of those things.
Yeah, but yes and no at the same time. I think it does spend a lot of time developing some of the characters we don't really get to see on screen as much. Like Sunny said, the stars of the Avengers is Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, and we really get to see a lot of them, but we don't get to see a lot of the interactions between like what's her name, Black Widow, the Hulk, all the secondary characters. And this movie really helps build up some of those relationships that we haven't seen in the past. And I think it does a good job of that as well. I mean, it might be a little corny, but I think it at least gives us some reason as to why these guys are friends. They're not just part of a group called the Avengers and friends by association.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it seems like it's exploring like a different type of, theme. It's not the typical Marvel formula, or doesn't look like the typical Marvel formula. It kind of looks like its own little, fun side story, which I think is kind of cool. I mean, if they're going to be doing these and putting these out, I kind of like that there's going to be a few that have its own character that sticks out. Like, to me, Guardians of the Galaxy sticks out. It's its own, it feels like its own thing. Like, if it wasn't even part of Marvel, it wouldn't make a difference. Like, I don't feel like it would affect the movie as much.
Yep.
And I kind of think that this would be the same thing. Like, even if they weren't building this Marvel universe, this would still be a fun story.
Yeah, but that's my point, is that for Guardians, that's totally satisfactory. That's totally fine. But for Thor, he doesn't just exist by himself, right? Like, Thor...
Yeah.
Was Thor the second or the third Marvel movie to come out?
So we had Iron Man that kicked it all off, right?
Right.
We're not including Spider-Man?
No, not because, I mean, we don't include Spider-Man until Homecoming. I'd have to look it up. But, I mean, Thor, again, yeah, he's one of the core three. And his relationship to the rest of the main Marvel heroes, again, aside from Guardians, is that, he is a god. He knows significantly more and lives on a completely different plane of existence than everybody else, all of the other heroes. Mm-hmm. And even himself is a part from the Guardians, because they're still mortal and they still, they don't like use the Bifrost to travel around despite, having a hyperdrive or whatever.
Sonny, you're right. So it's Iron Man, the Hulk, and then Thor in order of movie releases.
Yeah. So when when they prioritize him that way, you kind of want his storyline to not be these. I guess at this point I'm really speaking for myself. Yeah. I didn't want his storyline to be something that was just strictly about him. It has to be mainly about him, but it should involve the bigger picture. Like Captain America Civil War did a great job of that, making it mainly about Captain America, but still moving the universe's narrative along, not just his own.
I don't even think of that as a Captain America movie. Civil War, I think of as an Avengers movie.
Yeah, exactly. And Thor didn't have to be that way, but I expected more of that element.
I get what you're saying completely now. Even though this movie's highly focused on Thor, it doesn't involve enough action that affects any of the other major characters in the Marvel universe, right? Mm-hmm. Completely no spoilers, but like unless the end of the movie has a larger impact than we actually know, or it's yet to be seen in the next movies. But
you're basically saying it's not adding to this greater story.
Not as much as it could have.
Right.
Yeah, so if this movie doesn't exist, the storyline didn't really change much.
Yeah, not much at all.
But besides that point, Sonny, I mean, what did you like about the film?
Oh, I thought it was visually beautiful. Mm-hmm. I really liked their use of Immigrant Song during the action scenes, both in the beginning of the movie and the end. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, like whenever Thor became like God of Thunder, I was just like, man, this is super cool. His eyes are glowing. He's got shooting lightning out of his ass. Like he
went Super Saiyan. It was awesome.
It looks so great. Yeah.
How's the tone of the movie? Like, does it stay kind of upbeat and actiony the whole way, or is there shifts in it? Is there like quieter moments?
No, it's incredibly snarky, sarcastic, and humorous. Yeah. It's like Guardians, but even to a greater degree, which is also why it was kind of disappointing, because I expect that level of snark from Guardians.
Right.
And even then for Guardians, it'd be a tiny bit excessive, but for Thor, it's just it was like, be a little serious, all right? There's like there's shit at stake.
One or two of the jokes, I actually looked over to my friend and I was like,
Mhm.
wow, they actually went there with this. Like,
Yeah.
I was surprised that they did it. But, so did you watch it with a loud or a big crowd?
Yeah.
Packed?
Yeah, the theater was packed, yeah.
How did the crowd react to the movie? I always gauge
Oh, they
a
were-
movie based on its crowd reaction as well.
Oh, they were cracking up at
Yeah.
all the jokes. Yeah.
Had a couple people clapping during my showing, and I was very annoyed.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it was really annoying.
The one other thing I'd say about that movie is they definitely should have given Kate Blanchett more time.
Yes.
And some better lines, but the majority of her lines I felt like were really rushed, and especially in general her scenes. Like she spoke really fast, the scenes went by really fast. They didn't extend a lot of the moments, but particularly with her, like her character was great, and they didn't, I think, make enough use of her.
She's so amazing. Like she really is.
Yeah, and one working theory I had that I guess that seems like it's been invalidated is that, you guys familiar with Thanos's original Infinity Wars or Infinity Stone storyline? I mean, long story short, he wants to court Mistress Death, who is actually the female personification of death. And he figures that he can court her and, like, you know, marry her or whatever if he can destroy the universe. And the easiest way to do that is to grab all of the stones and control the entire universe and then use the stones to destroy it. I expected that, given that Kate Blanchett is like a talented actress, given that she's playing someone who reminds us on 3 different occasions during the movie that she's the goddess of death,
Yes.
that she would be like, that they would introduce her character, and she wouldn't lose, but maybe not necessarily win at the end of this movie, and she would have a bigger role to play in Avengers, because maybe, you know, maybe she makes it out, and is able to regain her strength, and then Thanos says, "Oh my God, you're back, Death. All right, let me pledge my love to you," and then unleashes hell. Right. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, which is kind of unfortunate, either because it means they are squandering that part of the storyline, or that they're going to try to reintroduce a different form of death, right. As in, like, not the goddess Death, but like death proper,
right?
In some other way, which would be kind of weird, but whatever. But mainly, should have just made better use of Kate Blanchett, because she did great.
I think that the scenes with Jeff Goldblum were great. Like, really,
he was
fun.
perfect for that role.
Perfect. Another thought I had was the scenes with Bruce Banner, I thought were really good. They really give consequence of what it is to be the Hulk. And also, I love how he asks questions that the audience is thinking. And I'm trying to be as vague as possible without giving any spoilers. But, like, he asks questions that the audience is thinking, and doesn't just do it because a plot requires him to do it until it absolutely is necessary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also felt like the scenes with Anthony Hopkins were a little wasted. Those scenes kind of sucked to be. I mean, there's no other way for me to really put it, but they were just kind of dead and didn't do much, and kind of too mysterious to me. But
again, like, they rush through his involvement in the story.
Right.
The movie packs in a lot of scenes and a lot of different story elements, one after the other after the other. And then walking out of the theater, I realized the movie's only an hour and a half long. They definitely could have made it.
No, it's 2 hours, dude. It's a 2-hour movie.
I got in at 11:30 and got out at.
Well, yesterday was daylight savings.
Savings.
Oh.
Yeah, it's runtime is 2 hours and 10 minutes.
That makes so much sense. Oh my God. Okay, never mind. Well, all right. It still seemed rushed. It just, I guess, wasn't nearly as rushed as I thought it was.
They do pack a ton.
2 hours and 10 minutes.
because they kind of have to like rush in the origin story of Kate.
Yeah.
Is it Kate Blanchett? Yeah, Kate Blanchett's character as well, which is really interesting for me. But yeah, so overall, Sunny, is it recommend for you for people to go watch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like it yet to me.
Well, I mean, it's not a strong recommendation, but it's not a non-recommendation. Like I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree.
You won't enjoy it the way I thought I would want to enjoy it. So.
If you're a Marvel fan, go watch it. I think there's something for you to enjoy. If you are new to the Marvel universe, you'll be slightly confused, but I think you'll still have a good time. Gives you a lot of action, a lot of fun, a lot of comedy. So,
who's new to the Marvel universe at this point?
And why would they watch this if they were new to it?
Yeah,
no idea.
I mean, there's got to be new fans every.
And they decided this is the first movie they're gonna go watch. So, all right, guys. Sunny, anything else that you've been watching? Today's November 5th, so.
Oh yeah, never mind. That's why you brought up the date. Yeah, yeah. Remember the 5th of November. Gunpowder, treason, and plot. I can't remember the rest, but
that's exactly how it goes.
Yeah. V for Vendetta, guys.
Great movie.
Thank you for reminding me to bring it up.
Yeah.
Even though I completely forgot.
So yeah, you said you watch it every year usually today, right?
That's usually, I still actually might watch it tradition today, later.
Yeah.
You still have time. So why do you watch
it's daylight
it
savings time. We have an extra hour today.
Why do you watch it every year, Sunny? What does this film mean to you? Why is it a ritual for you?
I just like the idea behind it that you can just take control of whatever revolution that you want to impose on other people and just and if you just have the tools and the know-how and are willing to make the sacrifice, you too can blow up parliament and enact social change. I don't know, it's just a nice it's a movie like The Matrix, not just because it's from the Wachowski siblings, but because it's also like an anti-establishment type of movie, and I'm generally love those kinds, especially the ones that do it well, don't just make the anti-establishment characters seem like a bunch of lunatics, right?
Yeah.
It also came out at a time when Bush was in office, and despite Alan Moore, like the original writer, not liking the direct parallels to the war in Iraq, war on terror, and George Bush, it still came out at that time, and it still has a lot of contextual significance because the movie, not that original comics, but the movies were like pretty much pointing to that political situation and saying like, you better be careful. This is what fascism could look like.
Rings a little more true in today's political climate too.
Yeah.
Also, the face of Guy Fawkes is the face of Anonymous, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
It's funny because they have to buy it from Warner Brothers.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I remember seeing this movie, and I had just read 1984 in school. I think this was like right that year that we read 84 for school, and yeah, it was awesome. It's like such a good parallel to that movie, and yeah, just adding Guy Fawkes and what's his name? Who's the actor? What's his name again?
Hugo Weaving.
Yeah.
Hugo Weaving. I remember, like, I didn't know that was Hugo Weaving for a long time. Like, you could, it definitely sounds like him, but yeah, just like they build, like, to your point with the Wachowski brothers, like they build like such a cool like world. It feels like its own like place, which it's really cool to see a movie like that.
Wachowski siblings.
Yep.
Siblings, sorry.
Yeah, this movie is way too political for a film podcast. So. All right, guys. Anything else?
Nah.
Awesome.
No.
Not, we'll sign off on today's episode. If you have any comments, questions, anything at all, email us at nocamspod@gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter at nocamspodcast. We are also now on Stitcher, so look us up on there if that's how you consume your podcast. Another way to get to us. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll check in with y'all next week with a review of, not really a review, more of a discussion about Star Wars Rogue One. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Jason, we'll say bye.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll see you later.
Don't you say goodbye?
I'll say goodbye. All right, goodbye. All right, goodbye. All right, goodbye.